Ladies and gentlemen, the session I'm sure you've all been waiting for all day, a conversation with the Olympic legend, Carl Lewis. Carl, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Wow, that video was amazing. It really was amazing.
You're the one who made it amazing, Carl.
Well, you know what? Like I said, I guess I did the backstory, but someone has to do the work too. So it really was nice.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's well deserving. You won like what, 10 Olympic medals. You've got 10 world championships, innumerable number of national championships, and I think rightly you're called the athlete of the century. And it's fantastic to have you with us here today. You're joining us from Houston. How's your day been so far?
Great. The great day's going well. We just finished our Labor Day holiday weekend, and so everyone's getting back into flow. As you know, many of you know, I'm a coach at the University of Houston. So all of the freshmen started, the newcomers started yesterday, Tuesday. So we're just getting back up to speed. It's a different year, as everyone knows, because of the last year and a half we've had with COVID. So it's a little challenge with the new variants, but the good thing about it is people are understanding that how important it is for us to come together globally in order to fight COVID. It's not just about me or situations. It's really about everyone's coming together on that.
Indeed. I think that's absolutely right. And you were telling me in the green room about how you want all your students now to come in vaccinated because this is a demanding sport and you need to be absolutely safe.
Yes, it is safe. And so my group, I work with sprinters, hurdlers, and jumpers. And so our group is vaccinated 100%, which is great. And our team is over 90%, and I'm sure they will be very, very soon once school gets started. See, the problem you have with a team, whether it's a football team or basketball or even track, you have so many athletes that one person can actually infect the entire team. And so we want to make sure that if most of them are committed to doing what's right for themselves and for others to fight this tough disease and give you a chance, even if you do still test positive, give you a chance to be safer and healthier than you would be without it.
Indeed.
In a lot of cases, we take people from home. This is the first time leaving home. And so we feel a responsibility, like a parent would, to make sure that our student athletes are safe, just like we would our children if they were going somewhere.
Yeah, no, indeed. I think, talking of young runners, most of the people in this audience today are 35 plus. That means that they were all live and kicking when you were running the 1984 Olympics. And I'm sure they're very eager to hear from you. So I'm going to rewind a bit now to the early years. And you've always spoken of Jesse Owens as being a big inspiration in your early years. And I think you set out to beat his record. But you also had a big support structure at home. Both your parents were in athletics. And tell us a little bit, especially about your mother and how she inspired you in those early years.
Well, my mother was a tremendous inspiration. She'll turn 92 next month. And she started in Birmingham, Alabama. Gadsden, Alabama. I was born in Birmingham. She started there as a young girl, and she was the first person in her family to go to college. And she went there with an athletic scholarship, athletic support to Tuskegee Institute. And at Tuskegee, it allowed her to travel. And she ended up going down to South America to the first Pan Am Games. And oddly enough, just a few years ago, I found out that she not only went there, but she met Eva Perón. She shook her hand and met her, Eva Juan Perón, my mother. So that inspired her to go out and be more of an activist in things that she does. So she graduated, she became a teacher, but also an activist for women and women in sports. So back in the 1960s, she was coaching girls just here and there, and then finally decided to start a program for girls in track and field. And that's the program, Willingboro Track Club, that I joined a year later when I was just 8 years old. So she was a huge inspiration. And then as we were growing up, both my parents, mother and father, were coaches, they were teachers, they were mentors in our community. And so it was just an incredible time. I mean, it was different. A lot of people look at it as different because we didn't go on a lot of vacations. It was track meets. We didn't get a lot of extra things because we geared our money and things towards that. But I look at it in a way that it was fun because all of my friends ran. And our family was together. So it was instead of kind of the outside flashy things, we just did the internal family things and friend things. And so I look back, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, what would we do without family, right? I think they're always there to inspire us and also support us in good times and bad. But then tell me a little bit more about, the early years you're starting off, and I think you started off with long jump. Uh, but you had your eyes on this Olympic medal, and what did it take for you to look out there into the future and go after this? I mean, today the world is all about setting goals and driving
Right.
towards them. Was it like that for you?
Well, it was exactly like that. Well, see, the thing is, I was a late bloomer. I had three older siblings, two older siblings rather, and Carol, my sister, who's younger. They were all more talented early. I was a very late bloomer. So I had to kind of create these whole goals and ideas in my head that seemed completely outrageous because I just didn't think I was going to be that great in sports, especially when my sister she's a national champion. My brother was an All-American soccer player. My other brother was a county and state track runner. So if I focus on, my parents told me, focus on yourself. So my thing was, can I make the final? And if I make the final, just make sure you're not last. So in order to do that, with me being small and not really starting my growth spurt till later, I had to have the best technique. So I didn't say I worked harder, because a lot of kids worked hard, and at that age you only work so much. But I really focused on technique. So I started reading things, reading books, and looking at TV. In those days, we didn't have video, we didn't have internet, obviously. So I wanted to say, what can I do to get better? So I knew all of these great athletes back from the 60s and 70s. John Carlos, we met as when I was a kid. Bob Beamon, of course, was a huge inspiration just to see this guy jump so far. I was like, God, I'd love to do that one day. Steve Williams was a sprinter. I remember watching Borzov in the 72 Olympics saying, wow, look at the way he's running that race. So that's what I was like. I became a student of every aspect of the sport. I knew all the records. I knew all the people. And then Jesse Owens was someone that just inspired. And when I first saw him on video and everything, it was just like everyone else. But then I went to a track meet and I was able to meet him and hear him speak. And he had this incredible, amazing voice. And he told the story to all us kids like it was the first time he ever told it. And so I was mesmerized by that. And I went back and started studying about Jesse Owens, and I learned about Nazi Germany. And so all this stuff that came out was just learning and this quest for knowledge to try to help make myself better. It wasn't like that was as calculated, but that's the way I thought to do it.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, taking inspiration from the greats, and nothing like that. And I think what you said about the peer pressure from your own siblings, all of them being great performers, I think that's absolutely there. But you have 10 Olympic medals to your name, and you held that for almost 25 years, athlete of the century and all of that. And then earlier this year at Tokyo, you had Allyson Felix coming there and beating your record finally.
Yeah.
But I think it takes something very different for athletes like you to really perform. I always felt the Olympics, especially, right? It comes down to a fraction of a second whether you get a gold or a silver, and then if you come in second, you have to wait another 4 years to get back onto that stage, and God knows what happens in those 4 years. So there's a lot of mental pressure, emotional strain. There are hurdles, ups and downs of injuries and everything else. What, in your experience, has kept you going, has given you that strength and the grit, right? And athletes like you and Allyson and everyone else.
Well, for me, I was fortunate. My coach was a technical guy, and that's kind of what I liked. He focused on the technique, not the emotion. He's like, if you want to get emotional, win the race and get happy. So I went out every day with that objective to try to be the best that I could be. And so when I set the goal to try to win 4 gold medals in '81, we didn't know anything about it. Jesse Owens had passed on, his coach had passed on. No one from that era was around. He didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. We just kind of winged it and came up fortunately with a plan that worked. And so after that, I said, well, let me just try to go back and do it again. And then it just became a thing where I want to do it again, because each Olympics had its own flavor. The first one was '84. The second one was Ben Johnson. The third one was the long jump. Can you do it again with Mike Powell, now the world record holder? And the fourth one was, wow, this is your last Olympics chance, and it's in your home country, so why not? So they all had a totally different story. So different people came in. Leroy Burrell came in. Ben Johnson came in. Mike Powell came in. Larry Marks was there. Linford Christie came in. So it made it easier for me because there was always a new challenge. And there was someone new coming up all the time saying, okay, I'm going to take the title. Okay, I'm going to take the title. And so I had to continue to go after different people. Because if you look at it, in 1981, my personal best in 100 meters was 10:00. Well, and I was number one in the world. Well, in 1991, it was 9:86 to be number one in the world. So I actually had to get a lot better. And that was kind of what the inspiration was. All these new people that were incredible athletes were challenging me to be better. I didn't win all of the races. I was just fortunate that on the big days, I was always at my best and I was always ready to get it done. That's the greatest thing about it.
Wow, what a story. And that's a very interesting point you made, that you're getting older, but the times are getting shorter, right? That's a challenge in itself, I think, in some ways. Tell me a little bit about the 1991 World Championships. I think you had that was, at least when I read about it, and I remember seeing some of it. You had the one big high of of the world record on the 100 meters. But at the same time, it's quite a challenge on the long jump in that World Championship. So there's a high and a low, I think, in some sense. Tell me a little bit about what you went through, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear that.
Well, as you know, I was able to win the 100 meters and run 9:86, and narrowly defeat my good friend Leroy Burrell, who I work with now. And we were the first people to ever break 9:90. So it was that kind of race. There were 6 finalists that ran under 10 seconds. I think to this day that has not been beaten. So it was just one of those incredible races. It all came together. I was 30 years old, and it was a story. And it's like, well, I lived to go another year kind of race. And it was just incredible with the electricity, everything that happened. And for me to run the best race I'd ever run at the time I had to run it, it was incredible. And then you go to the long jump. I actually won the long jump, and I wanted to set the world record. I felt I could, especially after the 100. I said, oh my God, this long jump is so hard. Because when I put them on a scale of 1 to 10, if the long jump is a 10, the 100 meters is like a 3. It's not an easy event, it's easier. So I wanted to stop jumping. And then, of course, Mike Powell does his thing. He comes out, he makes the big jump, and in the 4th round, and I thought it was incredible because I started off with my best championship jump, and then I set my personal best, and then second best. So 4 of the 5 best jumps I ever had were that particular night, and even went over the world record. But Mike had a great jump, but we can't say he had one good jump because he'd been jumping well for years. He'd been close. He got to where he was consistent over 28 feet. And then he had that huge jump that day. And I think that it gave him the confidence. And it also told me, well, it's not over. You can't stop. You've got to keep going. And just in the flash of a night, when I kind of recovered, I said, well, I got to go back to Barcelona and jump. And so that's that night, in lots of things, it's a really tough night. But in reality, there's a good chance if I had jumped over the world record, that I might not have jumped anymore. And that's 2 gold medals in the long jump that I ended up getting. So I look back on that as a good night. That night as a competitor, you're like, dang, and I jumped 29 feet and 3 times and 28.11 once. It still didn't go down. It was best for my career that Mike really jumped well. So, to think that you can win 4 gold medals in the Olympics is just in one event, it's crazy because I never thought about it. I just did it. And so then all of a sudden, here we are winning in Barcelona because I wanted to win that. And then going into it, they said, well, you could win 4. And I didn't think about it until then. So Tokyo was a big meet. And then a lot of things we forget, it ended with the relay world record. So it was my best meet ever. I mean, 2 world records and going past the world record, but getting second. So it was an incredible meet overall.
I know I'm sure that will go down as one of the great events in track and field. And it's so strange, right? You started with long jump, and then finally in Atlanta was again long jump. I think when you finished on the Olympics, right? So great. I think, we have a question from the audience as well, and something that I wanted to ask you, given that this is a technology conference and all of that, Carl. What do you think of the use of technology, especially for coaches? You're also into coaching now. How much of that do you use, and what's your perspective on use of technology, especially in athletics?
Oh, I think it's wonderful to have the technology that we have. I look into like I'm with Nike, a relationship with Nike. Look what they're doing with shoes development, clothing development. When I started running, everyone wore shorts and no one would wear tight bodysuits. And so we started doing that in the 80s, and now we know that's more efficient. And with the new shoe designs, what they're doing, it helps people run faster. I think it's a great thing. Video cameras. I mean, I have a tablet. I can go to an event. I can shoot it, look at it immediately in real time, and make a correction. So I think technology is great for it. Some people are not happy about it, but my thing is that we'll go back to a wooden tennis racket. If you saw those shoes that Jesse had to run in, you'd be happy we had technology for shoes. So I think it's a good thing for sports. And I think the thing is that it doesn't change the basic facts of biomechanics and movement and kinesiology, which some people think it does. It doesn't change those facts. It just enhances the ability to be able to use them and understand it even better.
Indeed. And then, what about diet? I've read that you've been a vegan for 25 years, and has that helped you? And how do you coach the kids these days about what to eat and how to eat well for the sport they play?
Oh, I think the diet is extremely important. It actually extended my career because I went to a vegetarian diet and a vegan diet when I was 29, because I knew that basically, if you look at it from a perspective now, I had an eating disorder. I didn't eat very much, and maybe dinner every day and breakfast never, lunch like 4 days a week. That's it. No snacking. It just didn't happen because I just didn't have the diet at the time. So once I learned more about that, my career, I was able to keep my weight healthily, eat meals, 3 and 4, 3 meals a day plus snacks, and that's it. So I talked to them about that. We always try to get a baseline on what you are when you come in, because as you know, a lot of new kids, especially freshmen that come to college, they call it freshman 15 because they always blow up. So I really talk about their diet from a healthy standpoint, not losing weight, but their diet. And what to do to improve it and how they can make things better. And so I think we've had a lot of success with that. A number of kids have come in heavier than they need to be, because in track, you need to be as slim as possible. So we talked to them about that. We talked to them about their diet. They adjusted, and they also realized it's going to help them for the rest of their life, like it has me.
Yeah. Also, we have somebody in the audience asking another question related to that. I think especially in this last year, there's been a lot of discussion and debate about mental health of high-performing sports people. And, how important is that in your coaching for the younger kids, right? Because they're growing up in a high-pressure situation now. And always the big stage is a high-pressure situation. So yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a very important issue, mental health. But what I try to do is I expand it. I think that the thing that we have to be careful about is that we just think that every issue is also a mental health issue. Well, to me, it's broader. It's mental health, it's mental stress, mental opportunity, mental anxiety. And so if we don't broaden this out and talk about it, like for instance, if you're in a program and you're successful, but the program is smothering you, well, then that's just not the pressures of track and field. That's the pressure of the program. So why don't we address the program issue? Or I know some countries, my goodness gracious, if they get a successful athlete, the media goes crazy. Well, if the athlete has difficulty, then it's like, oh, this is mental health, is too much pressure. No, we need to focus on, maybe we can get the media to back off so they have more things. So that's what I talk to them about. The mental health issue is very important, part of what your success is. But I think we need to broaden it instead of just saying it's mental health and pressure from all the success. What is the core issue that you're suffering from? And let's focus on that. And I think that we'll have an even more broadened idea of it, because, the thing that gets me also, we have, if we get to a point where we're trivializing mental health, then it's just going to be a go-to for anything you want. And I think that we're getting where we could start trivializing it, like, oh, it's my mental health, instead of saying, well, what's going on? Young people in America, especially, we're not doing a good job of teaching them conflict resolution. I think we step in too quickly as adults and try to make their lives a little bit too easy, so they don't learn how to deal with problems and solve problems in a way. I'll take an example in track and field. A couple of years ago, we changed the exchange zone because teens were having difficulty passing the baton, the United States especially. So they changed the zone. Well, that was a complete wrong thing to do. It didn't solve any problems. We're still having it. So what I have done is just ask someone who knows what's going on. When you go out to a track meet, the men are running about 25 miles an hour. They're in these small lanes. All these people are there, but you're allowed one piece of tape about that long. How can you see that at a person running at you at 25 miles an hour? Allow more tape so they can see better and we have less issues. But see, we immediately went to doing something instead of saying, let's solve the problem, let's make it easier. And I think that's what we have to be careful about for mental health. Let's solve our problems, and it'll be better for the young people in the long run, because there are a lot of things they have to deal with.
Yeah, and we have a comment coming in on the chat as well that I think you've been quite vocal about your disappointment with the US team's 4 into 100 meters this time at the Olympics. But there's an well, it is disappointing when you have probably 4 of the world's fastest individuals out there, but they didn't qualify. But I think the question coming in from the audience is there any larger lessons here that we can also take back as an organization, right? And I think one of the points you made was, don't take the easy way out, really sit down and address the problem. But is there anything else that you feel, is a general life lesson in the way the 4 into 100 meters played out?
Well, what we have to do is understand relationships are important, but you have to have a baseline. I guess to relate that, the United States does not have a relay system. They have a relay person. And since they don't have a system, when the head relay person was not there because of COVID issues, then the system broke down. So I think it starts with, what is the system? My thing would be, I have a pamphlet written out for, this is the relay program. This is what we do. This is what's expected. This is what's expected of you. This is what's expected of me. So what happens, we get in here and all of a sudden it becomes nepotism in relationships. The United States team has not crossed the finish line at the Olympics in the final since 2004. That's just unbelievable. It's just unacceptable. And it's not the athletes, it's the coaches. And another thing that bothers me about that is accountability, what you're saying. This happens, they go straight to the athletes. The coach doesn't go up and say, I'm sorry, we made a mistake, I did it, it's on me. They disappear. They run to the athletes. So it's accountability. It's a system that is going, any company, if you think about it, if they had no system, it was just based on the present leadership, it would never make it. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. You have to have a system that people follow, and then you constantly bring in ideas to enhance the system. So that's really what it is. Our federations so often are based on relationships. Well, I want my friend to run, so I'll move this. Fred Curley only runs anchor leg, but I want my guy to run anchor, so why don't we move Fred to second? And then Fred has never passed the baton to third. Things like that are what's happening, and that's why I was so vocal and so upset about it.
Yeah, I do think that's a very important lesson, that the system actually pushes the individual's potential even further, right? And I think that's an important message, as much as it is also the individual and his capabilities that come to the fore and becoming a supreme athlete, but the system is what gives him that platform. And I totally get that. One other question is a little bit about yourself. You've achieved all of this. You were, athlete of the century and everything else. What kept you going after that, right? Because you're still so passionate about the sport and you're still into it. What has kept you going and motivating you after all that success?
Well, when I retired, I was ready. So that's the first thing. I was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. There's nothing else can be done. So I left and I went away from the sport. I moved to California, and I lived there for 9 years. I wasn't really that involved. Then Joe DeLoach reached out to me to talk about a youth club here in Houston, which we have now, CL Stars. And I did a lot of the youth events when I was in California, and it just kind of trickled my way back into it through the youth side, and started making appearances at the youth events and doing those kind of things. Then when I came back to Houston, I just said, let me help and volunteer. And so Leroy's son was just starting as a freshman. So I got involved, and then I got involved, I saw where I could help. And I said, well, I don't really have a lot of other things to do. So I got back involved into it that way. And what's interesting, and it's another, here we always go back to lessons in life. I tell the young people, look, you're in college, you're in school, you're at work, you're wherever you are. Work, take advantage of those situations now, because when I moved back to Houston, I was 51 years old, okay? And so I said, okay, I want to coach. Okay, I had all these choices. Or I could have just stayed home every day and just done my appearances and events and everything else. But I created the choices because I worked when I was younger. So a little bit now, you think, oh, I got to figure things out. Well, you know what? You're going to find out later in life. I wish I hadn't figured it out. I wish I had just done it. So that's kind of where it is for me. And I now I'm really interested because I'm invested. I've got these young people that are competing on the team, that want to go to the Olympics. They want to do all of these things. And I have them that I'm responsible for. So that's it. Think about this. I go into kids will come to campus, or I'll sit down with them for dinner, their family, and their parents say, well, I'm going to pass them off to you. And they say, the kid says, I want to go to the Olympics. And the parents, I want to be there, and I want to go sit there with them. Things, we're not going to get those goals. And those are those kids' goals and aspirations. And so I want to make sure that we do everything we can for them to achieve them like everyone did for me.
Yeah, I think I also read that Tom Tellez was your only coach, and now you're back to where he was coaching you. So I think that stayed in your head, and that's what you're doing for the kids now, and that's absolutely fantastic. Carl, we have a little bit of time left, and I do want to touch upon one very important thing that you're doing. You've, of course, inspired billions of us to dream, and now you're an activist for family, for youth, for education, for wellness, and so on, with your Carl Lewis Foundation. So can you tell us a little bit about what's happening there?
Well, for me, I guess the funny thing about it, when I was growing up as a kid, like I mentioned earlier, we had this track club my parents started. And, I grew up and became them. I became my mother and father, kind of a combination. But with the youth programs that we're working with, I have 2 clubs, CL Stars, which is age group. And the unique thing about that is I have some kids that started at age group 6 years old, now have gone to college, and now post-collegiate through the same team the whole time. So we're trying to teach them how to manage their way through life, even at a young age. I'm also on the board of Best Buddies, which works with people with intellectual disabilities. And that's something that's very exciting. I started the Special Olympics back in the 80s there, and I'm a UN ambassador. I travel the world for the Food and Agriculture Organization. And I think I've been a foster parent here in the United States before, so I understand. So I'm just someone that's not closing any doors. If something's interesting, I say, hey, that's interesting. I wanted to be a foster parent because I heard about the plight of a lot of young African-American boys, especially, that are not getting taken or not being supported. And so it's just, that's the thing. I've created a freedom through the Carl Lewis Foundation, and freedom to do anything that I can to help these young people. And that doesn't include like the individual one-off events and this kind of stuff. But I think it's so important to speak truth to power for them, to tell them the truth, and to have the courage to say, this is the way the world's really going to be, and here's how you have to navigate through it. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, and I don't sugarcoat anything. I tell them all the time the challenges, not that it's tough, the challenges, because everything is tough. It's just that how do you manage and navigate through those challenges? And I really enjoy working with the young people, with the age group kids, all the way up through the college kids.
That's just amazing, Carl, and thank you for doing that. I think every little bit of kindness today, just strengthens our purpose and gives a higher meaning to what we're trying to do. So thank you for that. I'm going to end with one trick question. If you look back now, and if not track and field, is there any other sport that you see yourself as something that you would have pursued?
Well, second sport was soccer.
Soccer,
Without
okay.
question. And yeah, I tried. I tried baseball, terrible. Football, I never tried. American football, and even did swimming for a little bit. It didn't, but I played soccer for 6 years, and so when I got into high school, I just felt like track was the thing for me. But that would have definitely been my second sport, without question. My brother actually was a professional player here in the United States, and so I had him as a role model in that regard, and that was why I went into soccer, because I kind of followed him and stayed in it that long. So without question, that would have been fun. At the time in the 80s and 90s, playing internationally. United States wasn't as tough, but shoot, I'd have probably been in Europe or somewhere else, or Asia somewhere, trying to play like everyone does now.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are some soccer teams that are glad that you didn't come there and sprint with the ball. So
yeah, it's funny because even when I was smaller and not as fast, I was fast for soccer. So I was a center forward most of the time, and then sometimes a right wing. And so I had a lot of breakaways.
Indeed.
Pull the team back, and then pull everyone back, and then just kick it and go. I had a lot of those.
Yeah. Well, Carl, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I think it's what you're doing is just so amazing. And, we're always in awe of everything that you've achieved, and we wish you the very, very best. Thanks for spending this time. And, I hope you continue to inspire generations from here on.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And we talked about technology. And the thing about it is that what's so great is that we're doing this. The world was able to move on through the pandemic because of technology. So keep that coming in. I'm really excited about it. And thank you so much for having me. And great questions. Even the audience questions were great. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Back to you, Luvelda.